Last week we started with a new religion, Baha'i faith, and we're going to continue that tonight. I'm going to do some review. Part of that is because this religion may be more unfamiliar to you, as it was more unfamiliar to me. And so it won't hurt to just review a little bit, because I don't have a lot of new material tonight, because I'm kind of cutting it off at a certain point, and then we'll go into more of their practices, their beliefs, next week, Lord willing. But we looked at last week the history and the facts, and of course my computer's already on the, already not doing, oh, there we go. So history and facts of the Baha'i faith is that it is called the Baha'i faith, not Baha'i. And it has an estimated 8 million adherents. It was founded by Mirza Hussein Ali Nuri, who lived from 1817 to 1892. And he was given the title Baha'u'llah, which means the manifestation of the glory of Allah. He claimed to be divine and the most recent in a line of messengers from Allah. And it has Islamic roots. Now, if you were to look at the tenets, the beliefs, the practices of the religion today, it would be hard to see how could this be Islamic related. There might be some clues to it being Islamic related, but its roots are Islamic because it ties in with the Shia Islam. It came out of Shia Islam, although the Shiites did not like the Baha'i faith, but it ties in with that belief in the 12th Imam, which has to do with a new, a new prophet or messenger of God who would overturn old beliefs and customs and usher in a new era. And so that's the 12th Imam would be a successor of Muhammad, who would renew religion and guide the faithful. And so Mirza Ali Muhammad first proclaimed his beliefs in 1844 and assumed the title of the Bab. Soon the Bab's teaching spread throughout Iran, provoking strong opposition from both the Shia Muslim clergy and the government. The Bab was arrested, and after several years of incarceration was executed in 1850, and large-scale persecutions of his adherents, the Babis, followed. And so that's where Mirza Hussein Ali Nuri, who had assumed the name Baha'u'llah, and he joined the Babis. And so he was arrested in 1852 and jailed in Tehran, Iran. And that is where he supposedly became aware that he was the prophet and messenger of God. That's what he had claimed. And so he was the one whose coming had been predicted by the Bab. And so he ended up then in Iraq after he got released from jail. And he declared, before he was moved by the Ottoman government to Constantinople, now Istanbul, he was moved in 1863, he declared that he was the messenger of God foretold by the Bab. And so that is how the name Baha'is came into existence, because the Babis acknowledged his claim, and that's when they became known as the Baha'is. And so he was subsequently confined by the Ottomans in Adrianople, which is now Edirne, Turkey, and then in what is now Akko, Israel. So interesting, I found interesting the Israel connection, although that would have been before the reestablishment of the state of Israel, the establishment of the modern state of Israel. And so then he appointed, before he died in 1892, he appointed his eldest son, Abd al-Baha, who lived from 1844 to 1921, to be the leader of the Baha'i community, and authorized the interpreter, and he was the authorized interpreter of his teachings. And so Abd al-Baha actively administered the movement's affairs and spread the faith to North America, Europe, and other continents. And then he appointed his eldest grandson, Shoghi Effendi Rabbani, to be his successor. And so then beginning in the 1960s, and there was a rapid expansion in different parts of the world, and so they They had, by the early 21st century, they had more than 180 national spiritual assemblies, or the national governing bodies, and several thousand local spiritual assemblies. And so after Islamic fundamentalists came to power in Iran in 1979, the 300,000 Baha'is there were persecuted by the government. And so that is an indication, even though it has Islamic roots, it was a branch off of Islam, and so the most fundamental of the Muslims did not like them at all because they were going a completely different direction as far as the claim to be the 12th Imam, and so thinking that that person was the messenger of Allah, and they did not like that splintering off of that group. What I want to focus on tonight is what is called the Universal House of Justice. The Universal House of Justice. This was ordained by Baha'u'llah as the legislative authority of the Baha'i faith. Abdu'l-Baha's grandson, Shoghi Effendi, was left with the responsibility to appoint the Universal House of Justice. After Abdu'l-Baha died in 1921, the leadership was not so much about a single individual as it was about an administrative order. So as we've already focused on some key individuals of this religion, it is not so much about an individual anymore as it is the whole order, as it is the whole structure of the religion and its authority. Now this is from Encyclopedia Britannica. The Baha'i community is governed according to general principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah and through institutions created by him that were elaborated and expanded on by Abd al-Baha. The governance of the Baha'i community begins on the local level with the election of a local spiritual assembly. The electoral process excludes parties or factions, nominations, and campaigning for office. The local spiritual assembly has jurisdiction over all local affairs of the Baha'i community. On the national scale, each year, Baha'is elect delegates to a national convention that elects a national spiritual assembly with jurisdiction over Baha'is throughout an entire country. All national spiritual assemblies of the world periodically constitute themselves in an international convention and elect a supreme governing body known as the Universal House of Justice. Universal House of Justice has a really kind of one world religion sound to it, doesn't it? But that's, when you see the building here, you'll really think it's a one world religion. This body applies the laws promulgated by Baha'u'llah and legislates on matters not covered in the sacred texts. The seat of the Universal House of Justice is in Haifa, Israel, in the immediate vicinity of the shrines of the Bab and Abd al-Baha and near the shrine of Baha'u'llah at Baji near Akko. There also exist in the Baha'i faith appointive institutions such as the Hands of the Cause of God and the Continental Counselors. The members of the Hands of the Cause of God were appointed by Baha'u'llah and Shoghi Effendi. The Continental Counselors are appointed by the Universal House of Justice. The primary functions of both groups are to propagate the Baha'i faith and protect the community. So, my first impression of this when I get to reading this and seeing how it's all set up is I thought, the Antichrist is really going to have a lot of options when it comes to setting up the one world religion. I mean, ultimately it is going to be centered in Israel, which is why I find it interesting that this Universal House of Justice is in Israel. And ultimately I realize the Antichrist is going to be especially focused on the Jews and the building of the third temple. So that is the focus, so I don't want to distract from that as far as say that, discount that. That is the reality according to what the Bible teaches, but it's not, what I am saying is it's not going to be hard based on the way a lot of these religions are set up, that when the Antichrist comes on the scene, they're not going to have a hard time accepting him because there are different religions looking for different individuals that the Antichrist could really be to them who they're looking for. And so here they're looking for some of the Muslims still looking for the 12th Imam. And here you have their Universal House of Justice located in Israel, and they have this worldwide governing body, basically. Yeah, you think about that. The Jehovah's Witnesses have their governing body. The Catholics, they're loyal to the Vatican. That's their loyalty. The Vatican is a political state. And if you notice over there, for a number of years they've had these up. I don't think they've had these flags up all the years we've been here, but they have the Vatican flag flying in front of their church, in the front of their building. You know, they've got the American flag, but they've got the Vatican flag, and ultimately, a good Catholic is ultimately loyal to the Vatican. That's their loyalty. And there's a lot of Catholics that are kind of just surface, nominal. They'll go do their thing, so they're not that serious about it. But the ones that are the most, I mean, they're serious about their beliefs, but not in the organizational, political power sense. But there's different ones. You have the Jews still looking for their Messiah. And so in so many different kinds of religions, they still lead back to the same thing. They're coming together. This religion especially, as we're going to see more of next week, is open to pretty much anything and everything regarding religious beliefs, that there's a place for all these different kinds of religions, and this one just happens to be the next part of the progression of religion. And so let's bring everybody together. So we'll delve into that more next week. But this is a picture. I wanted to show you this picture of the Universal House of Justice. That is quite an impressive structure. I didn't realize that's in Israel. That's in Israel. And I think there may be some significance to that simply because Israel's at the heart of Bible prophecy. Israel's at the heart of the last days events. That's what's going to be. So how that might fit into that, but boy, it sure looks like a perfect building to be used for that. For some in some way. But it's the Universal House of Justice, the building which is the seat of the Universal House of Justice there. Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Mount Carmel. What happened on Mount Carmel? That was Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And building an altar, one to the Lord. And then the prophets of Baal build an altar to Baal. And who's going to send fire to consume the sacrifice? But here we have at Haifa, Israel, we have this very impressive looking structure. That is the Universal House of Justice. And then this is the picture of the shrine of Baha'i near Akko, Israel. So that's a little further away as far as the picture because it's a larger landscape there to show the whole thing. But you get the idea. That is also in Israel. So that was new to me. I wouldn't have associated that with Israel, but that's where they ended up. That's where the shrine is. That's where that Universal House of Justice is. So as opposed to the other religions we've covered up to this point, this would be the religion I have had the least amount of familiarity with up until preparing these lessons. And so what we're going to do is, going forward, we're not going to have a lot of weeks on this religion. I'm not going to guarantee next week will be the last one. But we are going to then shift our focus to what their actual practices are and what their beliefs are. And we'll see that according to the Bible, or compared to the Bible. And we'll find that they are definitely not, definitely went far beyond its Islamic roots. And they are now kind of really just a very open religion for everybody to come together for, peace and harmony in the world is really what it's about. So that is where we're going to stop tonight. But boy, what an impressive structure. I just look at that and say, wow, that really what an amazing place, that Universal House of Justice.